Namaskar. A warm welcome to World News and Indian Perspectives on All India Radio. This is Manoj Singh Rana, and with me is VC Pramod, bringing glimpses of the major developments of the day from across the globe. Over the next half an hour, we shall bring you the latest from the world of politics, economy, sports, entertainment and more. The headlines. India achieves another milestone in COVID-19 vaccination drive as total coverage crosses 75 crore mark. Recovery rate reaches 97.54%. Indian External Affairs Minister S. Jaishankar says India willing to stand by Afghan people. United Nations seeks millions in international aid for Afghanistan. Secretary General Antonio Guterres warns the country is facing a major humanitarian crisis. India and US launch the Climate Action and Finance Mobilization Dialogue. Union Minister of Environment Bhupendra Yadav says climate change is one of the biggest challenges for the world. US Special Presidential Envoy for Climate John Kerry says India and US are jointly working to address climate change issue. And in Spain, wildfire breaks out in southern region of Andalusia. Around 2,000 people leave their homes. As the nationwide free COVID-19 vaccination campaign at government facilities for those above 18 years is underway, we advise our young listeners to get vaccinated and help others get vaccinated. We also advise our listeners not to lower their guard as COVID-19 remains a threat to our health. Please stay at home unless it is essential to go out and continue to follow these 3 simple steps. Wear a face mask. Maintain 2 gaz ki duri for social distancing and focus on hand and face hygiene. For any COVID-related information and guidance, contact the national helpline numbers 011-2397-8046 and 1075. And now the news in detail. India has crossed yet another milestone in the COVID vaccination drive, with the total vaccination crossing the 75 crore mark. The cumulative figure stands at 75 crore 10,41,391. The Health Ministry of India said more than 56 crore 95 lakh vaccine doses have been administered as a first dose and over 18 crore 14 lakh vaccine doses given as a second dose. The ministry said more than 67 lakh vaccine doses have been administered to the beneficiaries so far. It further added that the national recovery rate has reached 97.54%. On this achievement, Health Minister of India Mansukh Mandavia said that with the mantra of Sabka Saath Sabka Prayas, the world's largest vaccination drive is continuously creating new dimensions. He said in the 75th year of independence, the country has crossed the 75 crore mark in the COVID vaccination coverage. Regional Director of WHO Southeast Asia, Dr. Poonam Khetrapal Singh said the World Health Organization has congratulated India for scaling up COVID-19 vaccination at an unprecedented pace. With a tweet, she said while it took 85 days to administer first 100 million doses, India reached 750 million doses from 650 million in just 13 days. The Supreme Court of India has asked the centre to revisit its decision of not including death by suicide as COVID-19 death, even if COVID-19 is an accompanying condition. A bench comprising Justices M.R. Shah and A.S. Bopanna was considering the fresh guidelines issued by the Union Ministry of Health and Family Welfare to simplify the process of issuance of death certificates. As per the said guidelines, deaths occurring due to poisoning, suicide, homicide and deaths due to accident, among others, will not be considered as COVID-19 deaths, even if COVID-19 is an accompanying condition. These guidelines were placed on record before the Supreme Court through a compliance affidavit filed on the 11th of this month.
Bangladesh is set to introduce major changes in its educational system from 2023. Education Minister Dr. Deepu Moni announced in Dhaka on Monday that the government has planned to introduce the new curricula in the school from 2023, which will do away with division between science, humanities and commerce till class 10th. All the students will study 10 common subjects till class 10, after which they will get an option to choose science, humanities or commerce as their discipline. Dr. Deepu Moni said that the revised curricula for all the classes will be implemented in phases by 2025. Speaking on the occasion on the presentation of the draft outline of the education framework, Prime Minister Sheikh Hasina said that there is a need to keep pace with the global educational advancement. She said that Bangladesh should not lag behind when the world progresses in science and technology. Indian External Affairs Minister Dr. S. Jaishankar has said that in the face of a grave emerging situation in Afghanistan, India is willing to stand by the Afghan people just as in the past. He said to ensure that this happens speedily and effectively, India believes that the international community must come together to create the best possible enabling environment. In his remarks at the United Nations high-level meeting on the humanitarian situation in Afghanistan 2021, Dr. Jaishankar said that among the challenges that the current situation poses is that of efficient logistics. He pointed out that it is therefore essential that humanitarian assistance providers are accorded unimpeded, unrestricted and direct access to Afghanistan. He said India has consistently supported a central role of the United Nations on the future of Afghanistan, and the multilateral platform is always more effective than small groups in building global consensus and encouraging united action. In his remarks, the External Affairs Minister mentioned that India's efforts in helping the Afghan people has been both direct and indirect way contributing to the livelihood and larger framework as significantly as they have to direct material needs.
The United Nations is seeking to raise more than $600 million in aid for Afghanistan, warning that the country is facing a major humanitarian crisis. It is calling for international support at a conference in Geneva following the Taliban's takeover last month. In his opening remarks, UN Secretary General Mr. Antonio Guterres called the humanitarian crisis in Afghanistan a looming catastrophe and said the people of Afghanistan are in desperate need of a lifeline. Mr. Guterres warned on Monday that 1 in 3 Afghans do not know where their next meal will come from. The poverty rate is spiraling. He said hundreds of thousands of people have been forced to flee their homes, and at the same time Afghanistan faces a severe drought, the second to hit the country in 4 years. Many people could run out of food by the end of this month, just as winter approaches, he added. The UN has appealed to the Taliban to give aid workers unimpeded access. India and the United States of America have launched the Climate Action and Finance Mobilization Dialogue, CAFMD. The CAFMD is one of the 2 tracks of the India-US Climate and Clean Energy Agenda 2030 partnership launched at the Leaders Summit on Climate in April 2021 by Prime Minister of India Narendra Modi and US President Mr. Joseph Biden. The dialogue was formally launched by Union Minister of Environment, Forest and Climate of India Bhupendra Yadav and John Kerry, the US Special Presidential Envoy for Climate at New Delhi. Speaking at the launch, Mr. Yadav said that the climate change is one of the biggest challenges for the world and it has multi-dimensionality effect. He said it requires a global response. Let's listen to key highlights of Union Minister of Environment, Forest and Climate Change Bhupendra Yadav's speech.
To the launch of Climate Action and Finance Mobilization Dialogue. As we all know, climate change is one of the biggest global challenges of the country. It is multidimensional, visible, goes beyond national borders, and so it requires a global response. India is committed at the highest level of combat climate change and also for meeting its commitment made to the international community under the Convention and its Paris Climate Change Agreement. The government is addressing challenges posed by climate change through its several key initiatives. We are working proactively in promoting low carbon and sustainable lifestyle, and our action translates into India's multiple policies and programs aimed at synchronizing development and climate change action at national, state and local levels. The India economy is becoming greener through this conscious action, and there are efforts to enhance energy efficiency across the economy, increase the share of renewable energy in the national mix and enhance forest and tree cover, while simultaneously meeting India's development challenge in a sustainable manner. India's climate action are rated high in many independent assessments. India has achieved reduction of 24% in emission intensity of its GDP between 2005 and 2016, thereby achieving its pre-2020 voluntary target. India's NDC has been rated as 2 degrees Celsius compatible. India's Prime Minister has further announced the aspirational target of renewable energy capacity of 450 gigawatt by 2030. India's total forest and tree cover is 24.56% of the total geographical area of the country, and it is increasing. We are moving ahead to achieve targeted forest and tree cover of 33% of total geographical area. India's forest and tree cover from 2009 to 2019 is 23,608 square kilometers. In the last 2 assessments of 2017 and 2019, there is an increase of 5,188 square kilometers in forest and tree cover. And his vision of energy justice, India sees hydrogen as a future energy driver. Toward this, we have launched the National Hydrogen Mission. I am fully confident that today's initiative under India-US Partnership Agenda will further help us in strengthening our climate action. As two mature and vibrant democracies, India and United States are natural partners with shared values. Our agenda encompasses all major pillars of our strategic priorities, including defense, security, energy, technology, education, and healthcare. Our growing economic engagement and deep-rooted people-to-people linkage with 4 million strong Indian diaspora in United States have played an important role in bringing the countries closer. During the launch of India-US Climate and Clean Energy Agenda 2030 Partnership at Leaders Summit on Climate in April 2021, Prime Minister Shri Narendra Modi and President Mr. Joseph Biden have made a statement to enhance action to meet the goal of Paris Agreement. Climate Action and Finance Mobilization Dialogue of Agenda 2030 Partnership will provide both countries an opportunity to renewable collaboration on climate change while addressing the financial aspect. Recognize that India is already an attractive destination for global clean energy investment. I hope this dialogue will work to mobilize and deliver climate finance primarily as grants of concessional finance as advised under Paris Agreement to strengthen climate action. I believe this dialogue will not only strengthen India-US bilateral cooperation on climate and environment, but also help to demonstrate how the world can align swift climate action with inclusive and resilient economic development, taking into account national circumstances and sustainable development.
Speaking at the launch of the CAFMD, Mr. John Kerry said that climate change is the biggest challenge for the world and called for collective action. He said India and the US are jointly working to address the issue. Let's listen to key highlights as mentioned by the US Special Presidential Envoy for Climate, John Kerry.
The Agenda 2030 Partnership established a climate and clean energy agenda as a core pillar of the U.S.-India relationship. And the CAFMD, as we refer to it in short, is one of the 2 main tracks of the Agenda 2030 Partnership that we created at the summit. The other part of that is the Strategic Energy Partnership. This launch comes at a truly critical juncture with respect to the challenge of climate crisis. The IPCC report, most recently, built on the report of 2018 when they warned all of us. Best scientists in the world said to us, including scientists from India, that the world has 12 years within which to make the most important decisions to avoid the worst consequences of the climate crisis. Regrettably, we had a president who pulled out of that agreement for a period of years, but nevertheless, governors and cities in the United States continued the effort of the United States to live up to the Paris Agreement. So today's launch comes at a time when the most recent IPCC report makes it clear that the world is not yet getting the job done. Just the other day, here in Delhi, there was a remarkable rainfall. This is happening now all the time. Floods that were predicted to only occur every 500 years, occurring every 5 or 10 years. And every one of us understands the basics of the science. To keep 1.5 degrees warming limit in reach and avoid even more catastrophic consequences of this crisis, we must take action now. We have to take action on short-term global emission reductions, because that's the way we're going to actually meet the challenge of the climate crisis. And we have to reach a net zero global standard by 2050. Is that something that President Biden is saying or I'm saying? No. That's a matter not of politics, not of ideology. It is a matter of arithmetic and physics. It is what is happening because of the blanket of greenhouse gases that are warming the planet and warming the seas, the oceans, at a record rate where 90% of the heat goes, and also transforming the chemistry of the oceans more than it has been changed in millions of years. So in the United States and in India, we are both taking action. In the U.S., President Biden has set out a very ambitious domestic plan to address this crisis, and we have begun implementing that agenda, from investing major new sums of money, public money, in infrastructure, to the launching of research and development programs that will set new standards for buildings, new standards for vehicles, and begin this transformation. No country can do this alone. And the world can't do it if everybody doesn't sign up to be part of the solution. That is why we are working to rally the world to address this massive challenge and to raise global ambition in the lead up to the meeting in Glasgow of all of the countries of the world that come together under this thing called the COP26, Conference of the Parties number 26. President Biden has also set the very ambitious goal that by 2030, 50% of all the vehicles sold in the United States will be electric, and General Motors and Ford Motor Company and others have joined in this announcement and say they will do it. The President has also set a goal that by 2035, our power sector will be carbon-free. That means free of oil, free of gas, free of coal by 2035. Prime Minister Modi has also set very ambitious targets here in India. The target of 450 gigawatts by 2030 of renewable energy is one of the most powerful goals set in the world. And already you have reached about 100 gigawatts of that. I congratulate India for achieving that remarkable milestone. And India is a world leader in demonstrating that economic development and clean energy can go hand in hand. And we are absolutely confident that that 450 gigawatts as a goal can and will be reached. And we look forward to partnering with India in the context of what we're talking about here today in order to help bring finance and bring technology and other elements to the table in order to achieve it. India is a world leader in demonstrating economic development, and clean energy is not a zero-sum choice, one or the other. You can do them both at the same time. I look forward to seeing this ambition, hopefully given its proper due credit at the COP in Glasgow. In order to achieve this climate action and finance mobilization dialogue that we're announcing today will serve as a powerful avenue for U.S.-India collaboration. There will be three pillars to this, three pieces. One, first, through the climate action pillar, we will develop proposals together that can contribute to curbing emissions during this critical decade all across the economy, our economies. In the power sector, this means a roadmap to achieve the 450 gigawatt renewable energy target, and across transportation, buildings, and industry, it means charting pathways for a clean transition. Second, through the finance mobilization pillar, we will collaborate on attracting capital and enhancing the enabling environment to deploy 450 gigawatts of renewable energy capacity and demonstrate and scale innovative clean energy technologies and promote bilateral clean energy investment and trade. I will just say parenthetically, over the last months in the United States, the six largest banks in America have all of them publicly committed that over the next 10 years, they will invest a minimum of $4.16 trillion in this effort to make this transition happen. And I am confident that with other banks around the world, other financial institutions, with asset managers and investment funds, there's going to be much more than the $4.16 trillion. So I'm very, very pleased that today we have such robust participation from across the Indian government in this launch of the Climate Action Finance Mobilization Dialogue. One of the things I left out, in addition to the three parts, the third is adaptation and resilience, and we're going to collaborate to build the capacity to measure and manage climate risks in those other sectors of the economy. We're also going to be active on the protection of forests, which is a major responsibility of Minister Yadav. Prime Minister Modi has been a tremendous leader in this, and we look forward to his visit to the United States in a few days when we'll have an opportunity to be able to discuss this further. There's never been a better time to invest in the energy transition. Renewable energy is cheaper than ever. In fact, it is cheaper to build a solar farm in India than anywhere else on the planet. And investors are now flocking to clean energy all around the world. And the energy transition is already rebounding after the worst of the pandemic, and it is now on track to smash the pre-pandemic record of $8.4 billion invested in 1 year. Clean energy represents the choice we face about dealing with climate is not a choice between your quality of life and dealing with climate. You have one or the other. You can have them both. If we deal with the climate crisis properly, we will have better health, less cancer, less air pollution, more security, and we will have a stronger economy with many, many more jobs as we build out our energy grids, transition our transmission lines, build the energy economy of the future. Every economic study shows it is far less expensive to deal with the climate crisis now than it will be to wait for the future. So it's an enormous economic opportunity for all of us. And the International Energy Agency forecasts that if India seizes the clean energy opportunity, which it is, it could become the world's largest market for batteries and solar panels. There is a major opportunity for us to coordinate our two countries in a way that expands our bilateral investment and trade in clean energy products and services to both of our economic benefit. So beyond just deploying renewable energy, we need to develop, demonstrate, and scale up emerging technologies that will be crucial for the net zero transition. Let me just emphasize that. Even if we get to net zero by 2050, the job isn't over. We will have to suck some 1 trillion tons of carbon dioxide out of the atmosphere in order to prevent future damage. And already our laboratories are very busy working on new technologies to be able to do that, direct air carbon capture. And I am confident that we're going to develop that capacity. The IEA tells us that roughly half the emissions reduction needed for net zero by 2050 will need to come from emerging technologies not yet ready for the commercial markets. That's an incredible future. So I look forward to our very robust collaboration through the new Climate Action and Finance Mobilization Dialogue, and I am absolutely convinced that through this partnership, India and the United States can set an example for the world how swift climate action with inclusive and resilient economic development can bring the world closer to our goals and build stronger economies for all of us.
This is All India Radio giving you the world news. For quick news updates around the clock, follow us on Twitter at AIR News Alerts.
The Supreme Court of India has reserved interim orders on a batch of petitions seeking investigation into the alleged illegal use of Pegasus spyware to snoop civilians and journalists. The development comes as the centre has expressed unwillingness to file an affidavit in the matter, citing concerns over national security. The court said that it will pass the order within 2 to 3 days. It also added that the Solicitor General can mention the matter before it in the meanwhile if there is any rethinking on its part. A bench comprising Chief Justice of India N.V. Ramana, Justices Suryakant and Hima Kohli repeatedly said that it does not want any information relating to national security and that it is only concerned with allegations of rights violations raised by ordinary citizens through illegal use of spyware. Around 2,000 people have left their homes after wildfires broke out in the southern Spanish region of Andalusia. One emergency worker has been killed in the blaze, which began on Wednesday on high ground above the popular resort town of Estepona on the Costa del Sol. The Spanish government has deployed a military unit to help firefighters in the mountainous region. 6 more towns and villages were evacuated yesterday, and huge plumes of smoke could be seen from miles away. Residents of 5 other communities were told to leave their homes on Friday.
Hundreds of people took to the streets in protest against the targeted killings in Panjgur district in Balochistan province of Pakistan. A large number of people, including women and children, gathered at the main chowk of the town. The Dawn reported that they marched on the streets and roads and chanted slogans against the local administration and the police for their failure to arrest alleged killers. During the protests, people said about a dozen innocent civilians had been killed in Panjgur in a month, but not a single alleged killer had been arrested. North Korea has tested a new long-range cruise missile capable of hitting much of Japan, the state media said on Monday. The weekend test saw missiles traveling up to 1,500 kilometers, the official KCNA news agency said. It suggests North Korea is still capable of developing weapons despite food shortages and an economic crisis. The US military said the latest reports pose threats to the international community and neighboring Japan. A picture in the North Korean Rodong Shinmun newspaper showed a missile being fired from a launch vehicle, while another could be seen in a horizontal flight.
And now a report from the business world.
At the stock markets, the Sensex at the Bombay Stock Exchange fell 127 points or 0.2% to end at 56,178 today. The Nifty at the National Stock Exchange shed 14 points to 17,355. At the domestic forex market, the rupee depreciated 17 paise to 73 rupees and 67 paise against the US dollar. Among global markets, Asian stock markets ended mixed. So Japan's Nikkei 225 index gained 0.2%, China's Shanghai Composite Index inched up 0.3% and South Korea's Kospi Index edged up 0.1%. But Hong Kong's Hang Seng Index dropped 1.5% and Singapore's Straits Times Index slipped 0.8%. In Europe, London's FTSE 100 had risen 0.6%, CAC 40 index had added 0.4%, and Germany's DAX had advanced 0.7% in intraday trade. Global crude oil prices rose for today as concerns over shut output in the United States following damage from Hurricane Ida supported the market, while analysts expected a stable market in coming months. So, Brent crude rose 62 cents to trade at $73.54 a barrel. U.S. crude futures climbed 64 cents at $70.36. This is Lalema Aneja Dang for AIR News.
Now let's take a look at the major developments around the world as reported in the foreign press. The Washington Post writes, Inspiration 4 set to launch of SpaceX rocket, first all-civilian flight to orbit Earth. The Wall Street Journal says Antony Blinken to face lawmakers over Afghanistan withdrawal, U.S. policies. Financial Times reports Beijing to break up Ant's Alipay and force creation of separate loans app. Gulf Times reports COVID vaccine passport plan ditched, says UK minister. The Globe and Mall says Lebanon's new Prime Minister says there is no magic wand to fix crisis. The Globe and the Mail report Blinken to testify to Congress on Afghanistan withdrawal.
Union Minister for Power R.K. Singh today met a delegation led by U.S. Special Presidential Envoy for Climate John Kerry in New Delhi. The purpose of the meeting was to discuss further collaboration on climate change issues and to work towards a genuine partnership between the two countries to pave way for the rest of the world on energy transition. During the meeting, the US side appreciated India for its energy access drive and commitment to achieve 450 gigawatt of renewable energy by 2030. They also lauded India for electrifying 28.02 million homes in 18 months and achieved universal household electrification. The Power Minister of India informed the US side about the government's intent to move towards clean energy transition. A quick look at the headlines once again. India achieves another milestone in COVID-19 vaccination drive as total coverage crosses 75 crore mark. Recovery rate reaches 97.54%. Indian External Affairs Minister S. Jaishankar says India willing to stand by Afghan people. United Nations seeks million in international aid for Afghanistan. Secretary General Antonio Guterres warns the country is facing a major humanitarian crisis. India and US launched the Climate Action and Finance Mobilization Dialogue. Union Minister of Environment Bhupendra Yadav says climate change is one of the biggest challenges for the world. US Special Presidential Envoy for Climate John Kerry says India and the US are jointly working to address climate change issue. And in Spain, wildfire breaks out in southern region of Andalusia. Around 2,000 people leave their homes. India is celebrating the 151st birth anniversary of Mahatma Gandhi. Before we end, let us listen to his favourite bhajan, Vaishnav Jan, by artists from Belgium. And with that, we end this bulletin. We'll be back at the same time tomorrow with the next edition of World News.